Welcome, everyone. Wow, it's so much fun to see people from all over the world. I know I can see already that we have friends from so many corners of the world. So before we start, let's introduce our CLASI team. I'm Dr. Zoe Mailloux, and I'm really happy to see so many familiar faces and friends. And I know many of you were with us when we did our Wednesday meeting. So let me also introduce Dr. Susanne Smith-Roley.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's so nice to be with you. We enjoyed our Wind Down Wednesdays so much. So here we are again, but just on occasion now. But it is really, I'm very impressed at how many people are here tonight. So nice to see some old friends and then new friends. Thank you.
Great. Okay. And then we also have Katie Estrada. Katie is the executive director at CLASI. We would not be here without Katie. Oh my gosh, she saves our life every day. And so probably many of you have interacted with Katie.
Nice to see everyone.
And we have Dr. Kelly Aldright. Kelly's been such an important member of our team. And did you want to say anything, Kelly?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name's Kelly. And if you're in the US, I actually coordinate all of the courses in the US. So I'm your person if you have questions about enrolling in the US courses, or as we look towards opening back up in the US and we're able to plan on site and you think you've got a great site that would want to host a course, you can get in touch with me. I would be your contact person for that.
Thanks, Kelly. And we have Marco Lau from Portugal. Many of you know Marco, and he helps us in so many ways. You want to say hello, Marco?
Hello, everybody.
Okay, so Marco is going to be behind the scenes here, making sure everyone's tech is working and admitting everyone. If you didn't hear at the beginning, we are recording. And we will be sharing this session. So if you do not want to be on camera, then you should shut off your video, but otherwise we love to see your faces. And this session tonight, I think we have people from all over the world joining us, and we're very happy to have you all. We're happy to see everyone. This is officially a session in preparation for our upcoming Module 3 in the US. So if you're joining for that reason, we're going to be talking a little bit generally to begin about some general topics related to assessment. And then we're going to have some specific information about the upcoming course. So just in case that helps you plan your next hour or so, if you want to spend the time with us the whole time or just at the beginning. And then we will have some time for questions and discussion. And again, it's just so great to see so many friends that we haven't been able to get together with in person. So maybe we'll have some time for chatting. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can look at some slides together. And so we have our little mantra here: stop guessing, start assessing. And this has really been a major theme for us at CLASI as we've put together our program. We've just seen the power of having careful, comprehensive assessment for children and for the families to understand their children and adolescents. We'll be going into adolescence as we move towards some of the new tests that we're using, and also with adults. So we appreciate all of you joining us and taking some time to think about this topic. So I wanted, some of you probably heard me talk about this here or there. It's a little soapbox I have, but I hear often from therapists, well, we don't, we're only allowed 20 minutes or 30 minutes for an assessment, and a lot of rules that it seems that therapists are given about the time that they have for assessment, which assessments they can use. And I'm always a little struck by that. So I just had this example about, what if you went to a doctor and the doctor told you that she only had 30 minutes for an assessment, and you went to the doctor because you had a sore shoulder, you had some pain. And so what if that doctor told you, well, I only have 30 minutes, that's all I'm allowed. I'm just gonna take a look. Here, fill out this checklist, and we'll just try some things. Maybe we'll try some pills. Maybe you have an infection, so we'll just give you a few antibiotics. Maybe we'll do a little surgery because it could be something that requires surgery. I'll put you in a cast, and we'll just go ahead and do some chemotherapy because maybe it's cancer. We're not really sure. We don't have time for a full assessment, so we'll just try a few different things. And we wouldn't be okay with that if that was our own health and program, but we do somewhat of that in sensory integration, and we can get away with it in sensory integration because, or in occupational therapy or whatever our therapies are. We may have physical and speech therapists with us here as well. We can be fun and we can keep the children happy and engaged, so we can get away with that kind of throw it against the wall and try whatever we may. We can get away with a little more than maybe a physician would be able to get away with trying a little bit of pills and a little bit of surgery. That probably wouldn't fly for long. So the point is that we don't want to have our practice run that way. It's not good for the children and families that we're serving, and it's not good for our professions. We want to be much more systematic and methodical in how we provide our services. And so we know what happens if we have a weak foundation, and that's really what happens in our practice. If we do not have comprehensive, carefully collected data upon which to think about and plan our intervention, then we have a shaky foundation, and that's not going to be good going forward. So, okay, so when we think about how many hours of therapy that children receive, many of us in the US, we start seeing children at age 3 through the school system. I'm sure that many of you work in early intervention, and you know that the children who we serve sometimes are in the system for a very long time. And I know that personally, I've seen children who've had some kind of services for years and years and years. So given the amount of time that we are possibly going to be spending in intervention, don't we think it's worth investing a few hours up front so that as we're taking that time from those precious children and families, and they're at such critical periods of development, isn't it worth it to take the time and make sure that we know what we're doing and why we're doing it? And Susanne, if you have anything to jump in and add, I hope you will. I know that you have a strong assessment practice, and I'm sure that you have this experience.
As you're talking, I have examples in mind, and so I'll just share one this week because I had many hours of consultation with an attorney this week on a 4-year-old little girl who's heading to a mediation hearing. And the thing about these are we're asked to critique the existing OT report that somebody else did, and the OT did a fair job. She did a visual motor assessment, she did a vision perception, but it was like the Peabody fine motor and the wide range visual assessment, and this little girl did fine on those, but she's severely dyspraxic. She had environmental deprivation and, very difficult home life for the first 4 years of her life. And so, and then there was one goal for 20 minutes a month service for, maybe increasing attention by 2 minutes. And so when I see that, it kind of breaks my heart, because this is a little girl where they didn't assess in all of the relevant areas that are indicated by her background. And then, if you're not using the right assessments or a comprehensive enough assessment, you won't come to the right conclusion. And then if you're going to provide the OT service, it has to have substantive benefit. You can't give 5 months of therapy for 2 minutes of attention. So as I listen to Zoe say this, which we've heard before, this is not purely academic. It's influencing these children's lives and the services that they receive, and also the integrity of your practice.
And I just often wonder how we got to this point. And I think it's fairly common in occupational therapy that therapists are not the driver of some of these decisions. So that's another topic. And we all need to think about advocacy and how we can stand up for our patients, but also for our profession. So when we think about why do we need this kind of extra time and attention to assessment? Well, we definitely want a clear understanding of, I'm just saying child tonight, because this course that we're preparing for is focused on assessments that are geared towards children. Those of you who've been involved in our program know that we also extrapolate to the whole lifespan, but just for ease, I'm using the term child. So we start with an understanding of the child. That understanding will allow us to think about appropriate treatment. Appropriate treatment is going to allow our intervention to be effective. If we start off on the wrong foot and we're just throwing activities at the child, that's not appropriate, and it's probably not going to be effective. And if it's not effective, then we're not going to have the outcomes that we hope to have. So this just sounds obviously like common sense, but it's surprising how often that lack of common sense and lack of sort of a systematic thread exists in what we see in practice. And so I wanted to just share this from AOTA. AOTA is participating in the Choosing Wisely initiative, and I have to move some things off my screen so I could see this better, but so you can see here that there is an effort again, this sounds like common sense, that we should not be providing interventions related to sensory integration if we do not have assessment data that shows that the individual has problems in this area, because interventions that do not target the documented patterns of dysfunction can produce ineffective or negative results. Not only might we not be effective, but we might actually be doing harm. So therefore, it is imperative to assess and document specific sensory difficulties before providing sensory-based interventions, such as Ayres Sensory Integration, which is the approach that we are concerned about in training in our Collaborative for Leadership in Ayres Sensory Integration certificate program. So if you haven't looked at that, I think it's a nice document to have on hand, especially if you're dealing with administrators and maybe needing to make a case for why you need more time for assessment. I think this is conversations we don't tend to have as practitioners, and is probably not the hardest problem that we would have to solve. Decision makers who have to look at budgets, I think, could be pretty easily convinced that it's not a good use of funds to pay the rather expensive cost of therapists and therapy without that individual really knowing what they need to be doing. So just encouraging everyone to think that through. So if we're going to be thinking about comprehensive assessment, one of the things that we talk about in our program is that we use the data-driven decision-making model that was used in studies that showed effectiveness of the Ayres Sensory Integration approach. And so we think about looking at the barriers to participation. And as occupational therapists, we know, and physical speech therapists, maybe we have some psychologists, we know that in these areas of practice, there are lots of reasons why a child might not be developing or participating successfully. And here are some lists. So as OTs, we want to be aware of all of these areas, and we probably collaborate on many of these kinds of considerations. You know, we're not necessarily, if we're an OT, we're not necessarily going to be the professional who would assess language and communication, but we certainly would be aware if that's a likely problem and would want to collaborate with our colleagues. Sensory and motor functions are on the list. And what's a little bit different about that area is that as the professionals who know about sensory integration, if we're not assessing those functions, no one else will. You know, there might be multiple people on the team who are looking at some of the cultural aspects or cognition and so forth, social emotional factors. We're probably all going to be considering that, but we're really the experts in the sensory and motor functions. And so we need to then think about, well, what does that mean? What does that cover, so that we can actually be sure that we've considered, like Susanne was giving this example, if we've missed areas that are key to engagement and participation, then how will we know what's really going on for the child? So we try to kind of be concise or just make it a little bit more manageable. So when we think about Ayres Sensory Integration, these are the 4 kind of umbrella areas that we want to make sure we've covered: sensory perception, postural, ocular, bilateral integration, praxis, and sensory reactivity. I think we find that just by, you know, kind of organizing this way, it helps practitioners to be thinking about, have I covered everything I need to think about in terms of why this child might be having some of the problems that they're having. And we're going to then be using that information as we think about applying the core principles. And I hope that kind of when we get a little bit farther along that Susanne will have time to talk a little bit more about the, as we go through the program, thinking about the intervention planning piece. Okay, so we are going to make sure that in our assessment courses, we help practitioners know what tools are available for these 4 major areas. And, you know, we do have some set tools that we'll be focused on, but our certification program is not a certificate in any set of specific tests. You know, we've provided training in the sensory integration and praxis test, and we continue to offer that. But we do not have a certificate in the SIPT. We're not SIPT certifying people. And we're going to be talking about the new test, the EASI. This is not an EASI certification. It's a certificate in the umbrella of Ayres Sensory Integration, which includes theory, assessment, clinical reasoning, and intervention. So these are the, just an overview. Probably most of the people who are here with us tonight are aware of the EASI and the tests of the EASI, but just to give you a snapshot of how we organize those tests in these 4 major construct areas. Okay, and so that was just a little bit of an introduction about the why. Why do we care so much about comprehensive assessment? Why do we keep saying some of the same things over and over again? Now we're going to be going into a little bit more of the specifics about preparing as we get ready for our module, our US-based module. So maybe we'll just pause for a minute, and just in case any of our international friends have comments or questions, and in case anyone maybe doesn't want to stay as we're talking about this upcoming module. So I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. Sarah, does anyone have anything they want to ask, or just say hello from somewhere in the world? Not seeing anything. So you can also feel free to type. Okay, you're all more than welcome to stay. I don't want to give anyone the impression that they have to leave. I just want, you know, to be upfront of what we're talking about so that no one feels like, what am I doing here? All right, so let's go back. So we are excited. We're getting ready for, we say US based, so we have our friend from Canada and you'd be very welcome to join us. We offer our program all over the world. So I think, let me go on. I think I have, so just as a quick reminder about the CLASI program, our certificate in Ayres Sensory Integration includes 6 modules. Normally, in normal times, in all times, modules 1 and 2 are online. They're at your own pace. And then in normal times, module 3, which is coming up, is an on-site course. I'm going to talk in a few minutes about how we have adapted the on-site course as a virtual synchronous course due to the pandemic. And then we have modules 4 and 5, which are online, and a similar situation with our module 6. Normally in regular times, in the before time, and we'll have the after time. This is an on-site course, but we have been able to adapt it to a virtual model. So I just want to mention that when Susanne and I had the opportunity to set up this program, we really thought about the opportunity of putting together a program and trying to fit content to various learning styles. So our modules 1 and 2 are online in an asynchronous way, which means that you go through the lessons at your own pace. You can review them as many times as you like. You can go back after you finish the whole program, you can go back and review them again. And we intentionally put content in our modules 1, 2, 4, and 5 that we thought were the more detailed kinds of information that is really helpful to review and be able to go back to and not have to digest all at once and memorize and hang on to everything. So for those people who are joining us or thinking about joining us at the upcoming course, ideally you would complete modules 1 and 2. In module 1, you get a wonderful overview of theory, the sensory integration theory, which includes a lot of neuro information. And then you go into module 2, which gives you the detailed instruction on assessment, including the details for administration and scoring of both the evaluation and Ayres Sensory Integration, the EASI, and also the information on the SIPT. We are now focusing on the EASI. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But for anyone who's interested in the SIPT or wants a refresher, that content is there as well. And then we have our on-site or our virtual synchronous course, where it's an opportunity to practice and have mentorship on the actual assessment methods. And so that's a course that's coming up. After that, then our learners go on to module 4, where they learn about interpretation. They use clinical reasoning to look at the test scores. Module 5, they have a chance to have an introduction to intervention, and they learn about the Ayres Sensory Integration fidelity measure. And then they join for a hands-on type course, either hands-on or virtual synchronous, to really go all the way through from assessment, interpretation, right into treatment, and talking about how to manage different types of challenges. Susanne, I'm going to ask again at this point if there's something you want to add, or I know you've been teaching so many of our module 6s and working so hard to get case information for our learners.
Yeah, I mean, just the pandemic has thrown a wrench into everybody's lives, and you know, our best laid plans for the program, which is that this would be a very practical program, so that, you know, we could, you know, mentor you all through studying theory and to assessment, interpretation, and then, you know, what do you do, the clinical reasoning, and even the moment-to-moment clinical reasoning during intervention. So we've adapted some of the requirements so that people can still get through it despite the pandemic. But, you know, that's still our hope. Our hope is that as you proceed through the modules, it's building information for your clinical reasoning from assessment to intervention, and then refining the intervention based on your observations and assessments.
Thank you. And Marco, I don't know if, I know you're still admitting people. I don't know if you have a chance to check the chat, or Kelly, if there's anything that you think we should stop and respond to, will you let us know? Maybe wave us or.
Yeah, actually, so there was a question before Suzanne answered on the chat, but I think it might be interesting to everybody. So someone was asking if we can continue using the SIPT, and you just mentioned that you still, there are both assessments on this certificate. And also there was a question about exams after modules or any evaluations. So I don't know if you want to explain that a little bit more.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. Yes. Thanks for both of those comments and questions. So in relation to the sensory integration and praxis test, you know, it's been a wonderful set of tests. Many of us use the SIPT regularly. I know Suzanne does. I do as well. And I mean, the main reason that we took the effort to develop a new set of tests, the EASI, is that many therapists found it challenging to use the SIPT, mostly due to the cost. It's quite expensive for the scoring and accessing just even the test sheets and materials. So this was a big concern to our international community. We were concerned that children all around the world were not having equal access to assessment. And it's what led us to develop the EASI with international norms that will be a very, you know, we say no to low to no cost test. The EASI is not owned by any for-profit entity. So the test sheets, the manual, the scoring will all be made available either, you know, we aim for free, but we want to recognize there might be nominal costs just in order to maintain the system of scoring and everything that it takes to keep a test alive. So the SIPT, as far as we know, I mean, it's available now. We don't know of any plans from the publisher to discontinue it. It's a great test. With the EASI, we've added some areas in the assessment that were not covered by the SIPT. We have a new test of ideational praxis ideation. We have direct performance-based tests for sensory reactivity, which we've not had before. We have a new test for auditory localization, and some additional measures for postural control and proprioception. So we've tried to fill in gaps. We thought about, you know, we did our best to imagine where would Dr. Ayres be in her thinking today if she was going to add to her tool bag of assessments. And we did our best, and we're really pretty excited about the new test. But the SIPT is still available, and we do still provide pretty detailed training for anyone who's interested in using that test. Okay, and then Marco, I'm sorry, what was the second thing? What was the other topic?
Regarding exams after
modules.
Or...
So yeah, so in module 2, we do have what we call scoring checks. We've tried to make our program heavily geared towards personal professional responsibility. We're old enough and we've done this enough that we've been in programs where we've had tests and we've had, you know, mandatory observations. And we just did not feel like those kinds of things were the best way to ensure solid learning. People got very anxious and worried, and they didn't seem like, you know, maybe they could jump through the hoop and pass a test, but it didn't necessarily seem that it was helping them in the best possible way for learning. So instead, we've tried to put together activities and assignments that in a way test your knowledge, but that give you the personal sense of competency. So that's really what we have aimed for. We have scoring checks for the test where you have a chance to observe children and give the score, and then you check your score against the expert score. And if you don't get it right the first time, you get chances until you do get the same answer with an explanation of why. We have something similar in Module 5 with the use of the Ayres Sensory Integration Fidelity Measure. So you have a chance to use it to score segments of intervention and really learn how to use that tool. And then in the entire program, we have assignments with testing children and interpreting cases. So it's not exactly an exam, but it's just a way to check yourself. We have peer reviews, both for assessment and interpretation. So we have a number of ways that we have built in that we believe are constructive, positive ways to reinforce your learning and develop a sense of competency. So hopefully that answers that question. And if not quite, then please keep adding your questions to the chat box and we'll try to get back to it. Did you want to say something else, Suzanne? I see your mic's off. Or...
Oh, no, I'm listening. I was just thinking, but within each of the modules, we do have assignments and we do have a couple of self-checks. So there are, like in Module 5, we have a fidelity quiz that you can take. So there are sort of, it's not really an exam, but there are self-checks and assignments per module.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so if you're thinking about the April Module 3 coming up, and from the 16th to the 18th, and it's not too late if you're in the US or Canada or in a nearby area where there's not another program. We have many partners around the world. So if you haven't had a chance to look at our website, the CLASI website, and see our listing of international courses, please do. We have wonderful partners all over the world and courses being held around the world. But for our colleagues here in the US or close by, we do have a Module 3 coming up in April. And it's not too late to join. Ideally, you complete modules 1 and 2, but it's not absolute. We don't check if you've finished all the lessons before you come. It's up to you. Again, your personal professional responsibility. The more you have had a chance to complete Module 2 and to practice, probably the more you'll get out of Module 3, because in Module 3, we hope that you come with familiarity to the tests so that you can practice with peers and by the end feel pretty confident in your testing skills. However, if you're kind of late and you're catching up, that's okay too. You still can get a lot out of Module 3, and you can always go back and take and complete your lessons in Module 1. It's great to have the theory before you get started, but it won't interfere too much with your learning. If you don't have enough time to finish Module 3, you can go back and take it afterwards. Kelly, was there anything you wanted to say about that registration or anything specific about that I missed?
No, and I apologize. It got very dark here quickly. I think
you are dark.
So we do have the registration deadline set for March 15th, only because we want to be able to follow up with everybody to make sure you're getting your EASI kits together and getting your materials gathered. But if you need more time, you can email me and we can make sure that you'll have enough time if you miss that registration deadline. So it's a soft close, but it's only so we can help support you more.
Kelly,
maybe you can find a light.
Yeah, I'm about to get up.
I'm having the opposite problem. I have the sun setting right in my face.
Kelly, do you want to put your email on the chat so people will have a way to contact you?
Yes, I'll do that now. Thanks, Marco.
Okay, so we did want to mention just a little bit about this adaptation we've made for the COVID period. We do really believe in the importance of some of the on-site experiences and activities, and everybody's looking forward to getting back to the time that we can gather in person. But we did want you to know that we've made this adaptation. It's been approved by an organization called the International Council for Education in Ayres Sensory Integration. I'm going to mention a little bit more about that organization in a minute. But we thought, we had people, midstream going through the program, and we thought this would allow for completion. We've had really good feedback. I think a lot of our colleagues have felt relieved that they could go on with something in life. So much of life has been in limbo and on hold. So it's been nice to be able to use this time while people have been home, or not being able to do so many of the regular things that we do, to be able to move on with something. And I think both Susanne and I were a little like, as I mentioned, we really specifically chose the content that we thought could go online and separated it from the content we thought needed to be in person. So when the idea came up of putting these courses online as well, it seemed tricky. But, with Zoom, we've been able to use the Zoom breakout rooms, and we're getting great feedback. People have, and actually I know a lot of the people who are with us tonight have participated in the virtual courses. So any of you want to say anything, but I think it's worked really well, and the feedback has been that people have felt that it met their needs. So it's not going to go on forever. We're not going to keep having these modules 3 and 6 virtually. So it is a little bit of an opportunity. There is some savings of not needing to travel and have hotel costs and airfares and all of that. So it's just a consideration. If you're thinking about it, you might want to take advantage of this sort of time limited period due to the pandemic, that we have the opportunity to have these courses virtually. I just did want to mention a little bit more about EASI. So this is a fairly new organization. It's an international organization that is setting standards in Ayres Sensory Integration around training. And so if the CLASI program and all of our partners programs do meet the EASI, or however we say this, standards, and that means that if you move from one part of the world to another, your certificate would be recognized. So we have had people in the past who've, in past programs, that they go through a lot of trouble to get a certificate, and then they move to another part of the world and it's not recognized. So that would not be happening with this umbrella. And also, if you have families who are moving from one part of the world to the other, you might want to ensure that they can access the same type of services. So you could look for a therapist who had completed a program, and we do have a directory on our website that's building of all of our participants. So that way you can have more confidence in referring families to therapists who have the same training, and that you know what they have. Okay, Susanne or anyone else, did anyone want to say anything more about the virtual format? Oops, you're mute.
Well, teaching intervention, we really didn't know, could we manage it? But, we captured a lot of video, and we do a lot of video analysis, and we do go through the material pretty systematically. And the reality is that we're getting, I'm very pleased with the way the courses are going. The participants seem to have given us some nice feedback. So, yeah, we made it work, and to be honest, we're learning new ways of teaching, and some of them are good. So, yeah, we're moving forward.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so as we've been mentioning, in Module 2 and Module 3, we are now focused on the EASI, because it seems to be, it will be a tool that will be more accessible. As we mentioned, there still are the training lessons on the SIP, so if anyone wants to learn that tool, it's still available to them. But we're focused on the EASI and the sensory processing measure. If you're not familiar with the EASI, this is a test where that covers all of those constructs. There's 20 tests. These tests are designed for children age 3 to 12. And you put together your own kit. We do have on the CLASI website, we have what we call an EASI starter kit. Most of the materials that you need are everyday objects that you can get at regular stores. The only things that are specialized are some 3D printed shapes. And so we've made those available in the CLASI starter kit. There are verified 3D printers all over the world. And you can get, if you're interested in putting together your own kit, you can get there more information on that as well from our website. But you'd have a chance to print your own test sheets, print the manual, or view the test sheets in the manual through a device. And then you'll be able to watch video demonstrations, both for administration and scoring, and then come to module 3 pretty familiar. I mentioned this in a number of the courses I've been teaching, that when I think back that we used to have people gather, I know there's people in this group who've been there, and they'd come together and we'd say, okay, here's a new test. It's super complicated. And we're going to spend the next 2 or 3 hours giving you all the details of how to administer and score this test. Okay, now go practice. When I think back that that's how we were doing things, it seems so overwhelming. So personally, I am really relieved as an instructor, but for the participants as well, that it just feels so much calmer and purposeful and constructive, that you get it a little bit at a time at your own pace. You get introduced, you watch the videos, you get to practice, and then you come together and you feel pretty good about, you know, the basic idea. You can get your questions answered. We have mentors at all of our sessions who help in a very small group way. And it does really seem to work. Okay, so we have, just for those of you who maybe are, you know, in the program now, we have an online learning management system. It's called Advanced 360. You access all your lessons. I just want to remind anyone who's maybe just getting started that this is beyond our control, but the system's not compatible with Chrome. So if you're trying to access your lessons and you're having any trouble seeing your videos, then get out of Chrome and go in through another browser. Katie, I don't know if you're still with us, but if there's anything about that you think we need to review, or just feel free to pop in.
Also, Internet Explorer, Microsoft Internet Explorer is no longer serviced, and Microsoft users should use the new Microsoft browser, which is called Microsoft Edge. So that's another one that's out of our control. But I know a lot of people are still clinging on to their Explorer, but it's time to upgrade. So if you're having issues with that browser, please do try a different one.
Thanks, Katie. So this middle icon is Edge. I think this is Safari. This is Firefox. So these are okay, right? But yeah. Okay. All right. So if you're getting ready for module 3 and you're getting ready to join us, we can't wait to be together. We have a lot of fun. I know that we have a lot of friends here in the group who've been with us in recent courses, and you know we always have a good time together. But you want to be, and we want everyone to relax. We don't want anyone to come anxious. So take a deep breath, just relax, do your best to go through your module 2 lessons. If you can practice, the more the better, but don't get stressed about it. We will be, what the other thing this has allowed us to do is to really, instead of being so buried in the details of exactly what am I supposed to say, what am I supposed to do, we have a chance to really think about why are we giving the test that we're giving? What is this going to tell us? And we have a nice introduction to interpretation during the module 3. And then as much as you can be gathering and organizing your materials, and Kelly mentioned that we do put a soft close because we want to give you enough time to get your materials together. But for those, you know, individual situations where things pop up and someone finds out late, we'll also help you work through it. So not to worry about that. During module 3 in the virtual synchronous, you will have a partner. If you happen to be gathered with people, this is starting to happen in some parts of the world, then you would work with the people that you're gathered with, but otherwise you'll have a partner and you'll be working through the screen. We put partners into Zoom breakout rooms. So be just you and your partner, you'll be able to demonstrate to each other, observe each other. With our Colombian group, I don't know if we have anybody here tonight from Colombia, but I think it was the Colombian group that they got really creative, and because they were doing tactile tests through the screen, they had gloves. They took some rubber gloves and put them on the table, and they were practicing with the gloves so they could watch each other administer the tactile items. So of course, we know how creative our therapist community is, and we're not surprised that people come up with great ways to being flexible and adapting. There are some parts of the day that it's best if you can find another human. So for those of you who are attending, and we can follow up and give you this information, so don't feel like you have to frantically write this down, but there are some blocks of each day that are best if you can find another human. We have had people use pillows and stuffed animals and rubber gloves and other things, so that's also possible. But just in case you're getting ready for the upcoming course, have this in mind. Maybe you grab a significant other, a child, a parent, somebody who's in your vicinity who can come and join you and help you with practice. We have all of the requirements, assignments are in the online system, as well as all the EASI materials. And I think that's it. So you can tell these groups that have gathered are enjoying their time together, and we can't wait to see so many of you in the upcoming course and in future courses. So that's what I have to share tonight. We're close to our hour time. Did we have any other questions we didn't cover that might have been in the chat, or just anything anyone would like to share or ask? I see so many friends.
Just alert everyone, we do have a FAQ on the CLASI EASI page. I put the link to that on there. A lot of the questions that were asked about, if you're a normative data collector, if you've taken the program, if you're SIP certified, all of those questions are answered and covered in that area. So you can take a look at that.
So Zoe, someone was asking about when the EASI will be ready to use. Not sure if you want to.
Sure, I'll tackle that. Yes, since we're living these questions every day. So, well, many of you know that we started collecting normative data on the EASI in 2019, I think, is when we really got underway, and we had planned to be finished with collecting normative data in 2020. Well, we planned a lot of things for 2020. We planned a big birthday party for Dr. Ayres. We planned a lot of courses all over the world. I'm sure some of you planned weddings and all other kinds of things that got dramatically changed. So, however, we're pretty impressed. We're going towards 3,000 subjects. We have over 2,600 children tested around the world. And even though we've had a pause. So our plan now is that we will be analyzing the data that we have and developing what we're calling preliminary norms that we will be using by the end of this year, probably by around August or September. We expect to have the preliminary analyses completed. I can't tell you exactly what it will look like, but we plan to have a scoring site where therapists will enter their data and then get some feedback. It might be more qualitative. We're not sure that we're going to give actual scores, but it would be better than guessing, back on our theme, stop guessing, start assessing, that you would have at least some data-based measuring stick of how your child would be doing in comparison to the data that we have so far. And then we're hoping that our amazing team of volunteer normative data testers will be getting back to testing soon, and that we hope by the end of this year, we will complete the normative data collection and have a final set of norms by 2022. So that's our plan. I'm not promising anything absolutely. Who knows what's in store and what lies ahead. We're feeling hopeful and optimistic these days. It seems like things are going in the right direction. So that's what we can say. But if that wasn't clear, if anyone has any more specific questions, we're happy to try to answer. And anything else? And then otherwise, Suzanne, I thought maybe you might just talk a little bit about when the next module 6 will be for US. And
yeah, and even before that, I wanted to throw in that, if you guys are bored, then I think, there's been just some really beautiful articles published, peer-reviewed articles on sensory integration. Of course, going into module 1, we hope everybody would have read Sensory Integration of the Child by Dr. Ayres, but on the ASI 2020 website, which is still up, right, Zoe? Yeah, there's a collection of peer-reviewed articles, and I know that there's volumes of research. Well, the links are on the website, and so you can access those articles, and there's just some really nice information, even if you just go through and look at the abstracts so you can kind of see what's out there currently. Sensory integration is on the map, and we've had some very nice publications like the Systematic Review in 2018, shown it all, and also the Frank Porter Graham report, which identified sensory integration as an evidence-based intervention. So, so there's some just really nice things out there to support you. And so getting ready for module 6, I honestly don't have the dates. Kelly, do you know what those dates are for the next US module 6?
I have to refer to our website for the specific dates, but they are in October of 2021. So
Okay.
Again, I'm going to refer everyone to the website because we try to put as much there for you all as possible.
Yeah. So, so after you finish your module 3, and that we really did try to be systematic in the design of these modules so that you would get the theory in module 1, that can take a lifetime to study sensory integration theory, the neuroscience, and the foundation for the theory. And then is assessment, like, there's the nuts and the bolts. There's the understanding the constructs, but then there's the nuts and bolts, the actual manipulation of all of those test pieces. And then, module 4 gets into, well, what do you think about that? So not just, being able to give the test and to acquire a score, but then to put those configuration of scores together in a meaningful pattern. And that also, takes some practice. And then that's, then you finally get to module 5, which is what is sensory integration intervention? What is the style? How do we operate with fidelity? And then 6, which is, how do you do it? So, yeah, I mean, and I feel a little bit like we torture all of you guys to wait, for 5 modules till you actually we actually say, here's what you're actually going to do with your client. It's not meaning to torture you or make you wait. It is really the way we were mentored. We were mentored to do assessment, to study neuro, to read journal articles, and then to figure it out, and then question what you're doing and go back to the literature and go back to your data and then keep going. And then the figuring it out in intervention also has a bunch of skills, which is, how do you get the swing up? How do you get the child out of the ball pool? So there's some very practical pieces during the intervention as well.
And, you know, another accommodation that you've made, Suzanne, that I think people should know about that's been really helpful is that Suzanne and the CLASI team have put together cases for learning, because participants haven't always been able to test children during this pandemic. They've put together some beautiful cases for learning the interpretation. And I think we've had such good feedback about that, because these are cases that you can trust. The scores, they are true scores by people, you know, tested by people who really know the test. And so while it's a great experience to test your own children for learning, it's also been really helpful to have some good, solid, reliable cases for learning the interpretation process. And we've been able to translate the SIP scores into EASI scores. So we're starting on the EASI interpretation. We have some ideas of what the EASI graph is going to look like. Of course, we all are going to be learning and finding out new things for decades to come. We're around for decades, I guess, but all of you will be, because there's going to be so much more research in the future with these new tests. This is a very dynamic theory. It's not something that's stayed and just gets set. It's constantly changing and evolving, and the new tests are going to lead to research that's going to give us a lot of new information as well.
Yeah, and with those cases, we have intervention, you know, so we do have, you know, also examples of good intervention. So that's really helpful as well. So yeah.
So I'm sorry, what's this question? So who would you contact to see what courses may not be required to? Okay. If you already, yeah. So I think that is in the frequently asked questions, right, Kelly? If you already have training in the SIPT, if you've already have completed a training program where you learn the SIPT and you want some updating, I think that's in our frequently asked questions on.
It depends on how long ago your training was and the organization, but you know, you can check with CLASI on that or look at our website.
And if you have specific questions about your situation, we try to handle that the best we can, case by case. And then the EASI Starter Kit. Yes, and Kelly will be happy to answer your questions. So Sue, was that Sue Troutman asking us to mention something about the starter kit?
Yes, it was, because there was a question about creating your own kit versus, you know, or whether it was going to be sold. And since it's not going to be sold specifically as a regular test like people are used to, I just thought we might want to talk about the fact that there is the opportunity for a starter kit and that in fact it was not going to be sold as a regular test kit.
Okay, thanks, Sue. Right. So as I mentioned, the only, you know, the materials that you use, we do have specifications for the EASI, and in the manual, we have specifics for all of the items in terms of, you know, their size and anything that's important to know, with some links of examples of places they can be purchased. Many of the items can be purchased at dollar stores or, you know, office supply kind of stores. The only thing that's really specialized are the 3D printed shapes that we use for the tactile test. We have probably about 10 3D printers around the world that we have checked their methods, checked their product, and they've been verified. And we have a list of those. That includes a 3D printer in the US. So just for ease, we have purchased a large number of the shapes from the US printer, and we've put them together with some items that we found were less expensive to buy in bulk. So the other things that we have in the starter kit are not necessarily difficult things to find. It's just that rather than you going and buying 3 pipe cleaners, you know, you could have some of those small items just put together for you. So there is a list on our website of what is included in the EASI Starter Kit and what are the other things you need. Some of the bigger items include a yoga mat, a therapy ball. You know, we didn't want to try to be shipping those large things around. We thought most therapists have more easy access to some of those larger items. But you can see a list of what's in the starter kit and what are the other things you would need to gather, especially if you're coming to our course in April. Thank you, Kelly. She just put the link there. Or if you're coming to a course somewhere else in the world in the next couple months. And I think that Katie had said that something about the international courses. Yeah, so Katie has left her address. If you're not sure about the closest courses to you, or you have any questions about those courses, I see our friends from Brazil and from Indonesia. I'm sure from other places. We have quite a few pages. I think I saw Sasha from Croatia. Who else is with us? So we're really lucky to have just amazing friends and partners all around the world, and we cannot wait till we can travel again and not only see you and maybe eventually hug each other and get to go out to dinner together again.
It seems so distant, you know. Just last time I hugged somebody.
I know it's been a long time, but we think that it's getting closer. Hello, Sasha from Zagreb and Claudia from Brazil and everybody who's here, all of our friends and organizers.
Okay, well, I think we're just at the hour. We don't like to keep people beyond the time we say. So if you are joining us at the Module 3 coming up, the US-based course, we can't wait to be together. And if you're thinking about it, you have any questions, let us know. Tell your friends, and anything we didn't answer, feel free to contact us through the CLASI site and we'll do our best. Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
So, Claudia.
Oh, it's so fun to see all those faces.
Bye-bye, Marco. Ciao,
Bye.
ciao.
Thank you all for coming.
Okay, so I'm going to leave now.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Turn it off. Bye-bye.